Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the Subspecies franchise. My name is Matthew. Joining me on Full Moon Fridays, as always, is Steve.
Hello.
Now, Steve, tonight we are talking about vampire journals.
From Full Moon, the creators of the Subspecies trilogy, comes a new tale of the undead.
Vampires are the spawn of many bloodlines. Some are monstrous creatures forced to hide their faces from society. Others are beings of age-old grace, walking freely through the world of mortals. A fate of endless nighttime, an endless hunger for innocent blood.
She has the gift.
For me, there is no comfort, no rest.
I've initiated you into the mysteries. A vampire slayer.
Frightened, Master.
You are no match for me. Keep moving. Soon enough, you will beg me for deliverance.
The Vampire Journals.
This is a 1997 film by Ted Nicolau. Again, I think he wrote and directed this one as well. I think he's the mastermind behind this entire sort of universe of vampire films. What were your thoughts going into it? We finished the Subspecies franchise proper. You were not a fan of the franchise overall. I don't think there was a single movie that you actually enjoyed in it. And before we kick off into 14 or 15 Puppet Master movies, we decided, well, let's finish out this Subspecies thing and see this kind of side story. What were your thoughts going into this one?
A complete lack of excitement and expectation of joy. Um, yeah, the series has been real bad. Like I found the last movie to be interesting, not good, but interesting.
Yeah.
And I knew that we were going back with this one. Like I feel like, and I'd be curious your thoughts after this. Like, if you think we should have watched this in release order as opposed to saving it for the very end.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, not no excitement whatsoever for this terrible franchise.
Yeah, I had a little modicum of interest in checking out Vampire Journals. I had seen it before, and when I was watching it, I was like, okay, I basically remember this movie, but I never really liked it all that much back in the day because, of course, it didn't have Ready. And I have to be very, very careful because there's boobs all over this movie. Like women are
Yeah,
constantly getting topless.
enjoy your
Yeah,
editing
yeah.
on
So
this. Remember, you chose this. No one told you to play the movie in the
that's true.
background.
Oh, I think it's actually coming up. Oh, oh,
Yep, yep,
oh,
there it
oh,
is.
oh! There we go. See, my hand is blocking it right there. My hand is blocking
Yes.
it. So yeah, there is. Uh, I was really disappointed with how Subspecies kind of wrapped up. Although I'm sure there's going to be another one eventually in the future. I like the first two.
When you say wrapped up, do you mean the end of 4 or the end of 5? Because technically 4 is the wrap up.
Both. Both of them kind of sucked. I didn't like the prequel. I didn't like 4, especially how 4 kind of ended everything. And so I was just kind of like, I really like the first two movies. And I'll say it again. I really like the first two movies, two in particular. But yeah, this franchise has been it's been a letdown for me. In my head, I had thought, yeah, I really like this franchise. This is one of the flagship properties of Full Moon back in the day, and I remember liking Radu, and the more I watch this stuff, I'm just like, yikes! I don't know what I was thinking back then, and maybe I just hadn't.
You were young and dumb and didn't know any
I
better.
think, I mean, yeah, that's probably it. And it's one of those things when you look at a film at a different age, sometimes, like, your memories of things don't hold up because you realize you see all the flaws that you didn't see when you were a kid and stuff like that. So these movies, at least the main Subspecies franchise, 1 through 5, they don't hold up at all under close scrutiny in my mind. So going into Vampire Journals, though, of course, we did see at least one of his character, Ash, was in. Well, he was in what, 4? Yeah, 4. He
Or
was in part
yeah.
4, briefly. So now we get to kind of see his backstory and whatnot. So, Vampire Journals. I mean, let's just rip the Band-Aid off here. Take it away, Steve. Tell us about Vampire Journals.
So Ash is not the star of Vampire Journals. The actual star is a new character named Zachary, and he has his backstory is told in various flashbacks, including like the opening of the movie
He's
is one of Zachary's
narrating, just like
flashbacks. Yeah,
part 5, where Radu's narrating everything, and this one, Zachary's narrating it. I don't like that.
yeah. Zachary is narrating, and his story is told across several flashbacks. But I'm just going to get him out of the way now because ultimately it doesn't. The flashbacks weren't like there was no payoff to the flashbacks. It's not like they were slow burning it at the end. We're going to see some final flashback that changes the context of the movie. No, it's just a very bare basic origin story. 100 years ago, Zachary was a poet who had a girlfriend named Rebecca. He and Rebecca are both attacked by vampires. He actually gets turned by Serena, who was Ash's underling
Yep.
in Subspecies 4. And this actually came out prior to Subspecies 4, so I
Yes.
don't know what the intended watch order is, but there's some things that like were kind of surprising to me because I watched them perhaps out of order. Like we would have known who Serena was
Yeah.
had we watched these in release order. Regardless, Zachary gets turned by Serena, and then his girlfriend Rebecca is turned by other vampires. Zachary somehow, some way, has the Sword of Laertes. I still have no idea if I'm saying that
Yep.
right, but
He stole it from Ash, who
he was
apparently
forced
stole it from
to.
Radu.
But yeah, apparently like stole it from Ash before Ash had. He just has the Sword of Laertes for no particular reason. Uh, so for the last 100, he killed Rebecca. He killed other vampires. For the last 100 years, he has been hunting vampires and trying to make his way to Ash. He wants to kill everyone that is a part of Ash's like vampire bloodline, which of course would include Radu at some
Yeah.
point. But
I wonder.
Radu is not here.
I actually wondered about that. Like, if Vampire Journals had been like a really big hit or something, would they have done, maybe a later Subspecies movie where Zachary comes back to try to take out
That's
Radu?
gonna be Subspecies 6, Blood Reckoning or
Ted
something.
Nicolau. We can write that script for you, Ted. Just send us an email, outpostunknown@gmail.com. We will get a good script written for Subspecies 6 that will
Yeah,
tie
and
everything together.
we will actually pay attention and like not create like massive chasm like plot holes in the narrative.
Yes.
Anyway, so Zachary has been hunting vampires for 100 years with the Sword of Laertes. He finally hunts Ash down to Bucharest or wherever the hell they
Yeah.
are. Do they even say where they are in this? I don't know.
I think so. I
I
think they
assume it's the
mentioned
same place that
Bucharest.
Part 4 took place
Yeah.
in. He tracks down Ash, and Ash has the hots for a new girl named Sophia, and she is just an expert pianist.
Because Ash is the
We
music lover. He mentions it. I'm looking for Ash, the
Yep.
music lover, which we did see in part 4, right? I'm getting them all mixed up now. What?
Part 5, he was definitely the
Part
music
5,
lover.
yes.
Part
Yeah.
4, like he's just kind of there. I don't know that he had a character.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ash loves music, and so Ash wants to kidnap and turn Sophia into a vampire. Zachary tries to stop that. Zachary says that it's impossible to sneak up on a vampire except for when they're on the hunt. Like when they're on the hunt, they are so
Lore.
laser focused on the hunt that you can get them. There's this ridiculous sequence where like Sophia is kind of like just walking away, and Ash is kind of hanging out in the background, like looking all stern and staring at her. And in the background is Zachary with a sword, like
Yeah.
just trying to creep up on
He
him.
says multiple
So
times, he's hyper focused on this person. Now I can finally take him out. He doesn't.
yeah, so uh, Ash approaches Sophia and is like, it kind of stalks her essentially, and is eventually it says, please, please come and perform at my club. Club Muse
Yeah.
is his club, and we learn in part 4 that Ash basically runs a casino and brothel to get money and victims essentially. So come you Sophia the master pianist, please come to my brothel and
Yep.
play piano for me is essentially what Ash is
And in
saying
part
here.
5, he mentions that he lost his muse because after Radu takes him out, whatever, he can't actually play music or anything
Mm.
anymore because his vampirism has stopped that. So I think he wants her, obviously, because he misses that music. This is all world building,
Yeah.
Steve. It's all world building. It all makes sense.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he doesn't also kill her muse. So hopefully he's figured out that part of the vampire process. But Ash is stalking Sophia, and Zachary approaches them, and which causes Ash to flee. Zachary walks Sophia home. Uh, the next day, a girl named I think Iris. Ash. We learn kind of Ash's not backstory, but his lifestyle at this point is he lives in some catacombs under this casino. The casino is managed by a woman named Iris, who is not a vampire. She is just a pureblood human, and Ash has been making deals with like wealthy people, and the deal is essentially, you give me half of everything you own, and I will make you a vampire. What they say is you can't take it with you, so don't hoard your cash. It can't go with you. Well, if you live forever, then the money is yours forever as long as you don't waste it. And so Ash has been cutting this deal with various
It's a
people of
good plan.
influence.
That's actually a
Yeah,
cool concept and cool idea. I like that.
yeah. So yeah, hey, rich businessman, give me half of everything you own, and I will make you a vampire. I will be your master, but what's yours is mine, and vice
It
versa.
establishes
Er,
how evil Ash is because it's like he's keeping the Elon Musks of the world alive forever, and that's bad. That's real bad. He's evil. Very evil.
yeah, yeah. Um, there's a mini subplot that we're kind of introduced at this point, where by the way, one of the like wealthy businessman that Ash has turned is Doctor Blood from part
But
4.
is it the same character? Because this guy's name is
I
Dimitri. They call him
Yeah, is
Dimitri.
the other guy's yeah, but I think is it Dimitri Blood? I don't know. It looks
Maybe.
like the same
It is.
guy.
It's
I
the
mean, I'm
same
gonna
actor.
Google.
It's the same actor. I just
Yeah,
didn't know if it was the actual same character or not. I was
I
confused on
think
that.
it's. I assumed it was supposed to be, but I don't actually know. It looked like the same character to me, and we find out in part 4 that he says, I am the sire of Ash. Ash is the one that turned me
Yeah.
into a vampire. So I think it's meant to be the same character. I
But he's
operated under that.
spoiler, he's dead in this. But I guess
Well, there's
a lot of everybody dies in this, but shows up in part 4
yeah,
and 5.
but he dies in part 4 too. So there's tons of fucking plot. This is why canon matters. If you respect the canon, you tell stories that don't have giant plot holes in them. Anyways, there's a subplot that plays out across the movie where Anton, who is one of like the rich people that Ash has turned, is not adhering to his deal. Like Ash says, I give me half of everything you own, and I make you a vampire. And it turns out Anton uh, kept some money hidden away, and Anton left that money for his kids, and Ash is like, "No, the fuck you didn't. I said half of everything you own, and so you owe me half of that money as well." And we'll see how that plot line plays out later. But there's a lot of characters in this movie, like which is very weird compared to how like minimalist it felt like the other subspecies movies were as far as named characters are concerned. Um, anyways, Zachary walks Sophia home, and then the next morning, Iris goes up to Sophia and is like, "Oh, I know last night you felt like my boss was stalking you, but he was really just such an amazing fan of yours. He didn't know how to handle how you inspired him." And Sophia's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." And so Sophia agrees to go and play a a a, a private performance just for Ash. for the princely sum of $1,000, which so she's gonna like throw away her entire humanity for a grand.
That man who followed me, he's the owner. He's a patron of the arts. They're paying me $1,000 for one solo recital.
Because she doesn't know that
Yeah,
they're vampires at this point. I thought she was
but
just going
still,
for a gig for $1,000. Oh yeah,
yeah,
cool.
she was, but still, she sacrificed it for a grand. She didn't know she was
Okay.
doing that, but she was like, basically like, yes, I will go play a private concert for the man that was obviously stalking me for $1,000. Uh, so then Zachary shows up and is like, Sophia, you can't do this. You can't go. And Sophia says like, look, I like you, Zachary, but you're not my boyfriend. You can't boss me
That
around,
is
which implies
funny.
that
Sophia, please, don't get in that car.
Zachary, I'm nervous enough as it is, okay? I like you, but you're not my boyfriend or anything, so don't get bossy, okay?
which implies that if he was her boyfriend, she'd be fine getting bossed around. I
What
don't know. There's some weirdness going
Also,
on
what I don't
here.
understand is how does she not realize that Zachary has like vampire fangs? It's very clearly obvious when she's talking to him that he's
Yeah.
got vampire fangs and he's completely pale, and she never questions it at all. Initially, I'm just like, this is weird, man. This
Nope.
is real weird.
So anyways, like Ash is like, Sophia, don't go to this private performance. And she's like, you're not my boyfriend. Don't tell me what to do. And she goes to the private performance, and Zachary's basically like, I tried. Uh, he actually goes to the club to try to rescue her, but he's a vampire. He's not allowed in unless invited. Uh, I guess that rule is kind of hit and miss throughout the
Yeah,
franchise.
because
Uh,
Iris goes up to, because he actually gets inside. Like he walks
yeah,
in and then she's like, "You're not welcome here. You gotta go." And then he turns around. So like
and
the it's a gray area as to what the rules are for when vampires can and cannot enter. Because
I thought
Radu,
he was like mind controlling them. I thought like because the guy says you can't the bouncer outside the club says you can't come in, and Zachary's kind of like stares at him, and then the guy steps out of
like
the way,
Jedi
and then
mind
when he goes
trick sort
inside,
of thing.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Uh,
what
and then when he meets Iris, he tries to like glare at her, but then he's like her mind is too strong, and so he leaves. He can't convince her to invite him
so
in.
that means that basically a vampire, that rule isn't really a rule, because you'd have to come up with someone who knows that they're a vampire and is willing to sort of mentally combat them. But we've seen Radu just show up in places
Yeah,
uninvited
there was
in
a
multiple
in the
movies.
first movie, they said that he has to be invited into holy places. Was this fucking brothel built on sacred land or something? Maybe they mentioned that in the previous movies and I've forgotten. I don't know.
I don't think the brothel is, but they do mention in 4 that the thing that where Dr. Blood is at used to be
Yeah, okay,
a
maybe that's what
thing.
I'm thinking
So
about.
I don't know. I mean, that's the big criticism of all this. Like, not a lot of this makes any sense at all. It's just they play fast and loose with the rules of the universe.
Yep. Anyways, Ash tries to rescue Sophia, but he's ultimately like, well, they won't let me in, and I'm not her keeper, so sucks to be you, Sophia. Because Sophia goes in and starts playing this piano, and Iris just walks her into an empty room with a piano and is like, all right, start playing. And she's like, all right. It starts playing piano, and she just looks up, and suddenly there's like a dozen people sitting in chairs that weren't there like a second ago. And eventually, Ash bites her. And I think the movies have established that just being bitten by a vampire doesn't turn you into a vampire.
Yeah,
It's
they have to drink
being
from the
bitten by a
vampire
vampire,
to
and then
willingly, right?
drinking your master's blood.
Yeah,
Um,
willingly do it.
but anyways, so Sophia has been bitten. She's not turned into a vampire yet, but she has been bitten. Zachary, meanwhile, just goes to feed on someone. He's very like he hates feeding. He says that like I I feed like just enough to survive. He doesn't turn people into vampires, but he will sneak into a person's room and suck their blood and then like flee. Not enough to kill them, presumably. I guess.
Does he
You,
have to be
he, you
invited into the room?
I know. You do what you got to do, as the leprechaun said. So Zachary ends up like stalking Ash, and Ash like immediately knows he's there. And so Ash says, "Hey, come to the club at midnight and we'll talk. And so Zachary shows up at the club.
I'm keeping
They
an eye for
talk.
titties in the background. I'm like, oh,
There's Dr. Blood in the
yep.
background. So Ash and Zachary talk, and Zachary tries to kill Ash, and Ash just like takes the sort of Laertes away and is like, no, bad. So like Ash is not threatened by Zachary whatsoever. There's also like we see this like random like I guess oracle woman who makes mention of this prophecy, but
Oh yeah,
it kind of
yeah.
never goes anywhere. Like like presumably the prophecy says that Zachary's gonna kill Ash, but Ash doesn't see him as a threat. And I don't know. There's a weird prophecy subplot that goes nowhere in this
Because
movie.
we have the main prophecy, which is Radu was going to kill his father. That was the main
Right.
prophecy, and then they kind of threw this other side thing in, and like you said, yeah, it doesn't really go anywhere at all.
Yeah. So Ash takes the sword away. He's like, "Look, Zachary, like I'll make you a deal. You stay here in the night. Be my guest at my casino/brothel. I will give you a willing consort, and then I will let you see Sophia. Not let you rescue her. I will let you see Sophia. And after that, you leave and don't come back." And Zachary's like, "You took my fucking sword away. I guess I don't have a choice here." Uh, and so Zachary goes and hangs out with this woman who is going to be topless, and I don't know if we're going to talk long enough for Matt to have to put his hands up to cover her titties, but that's a possibility. And this woman is a human, and she like kind of like forces Zachary to like drink her blood. Like Zachary is like, "No, get away from me. I don't want to bite you." And she's like, "But I got these veins here, and they're not going to suck themselves."
Yep.
And
She's into
eventually,
it.
like
Some people,
Zachary,
I mean, don't kink shame her, Steve. She's into it. She likes vampires that
yeah,
drink her blood.
all right. Well, she Zachary ends up giving in. At that same moment, uh, Ash goes and gets Sophia. Sophia, he's been drinking Sophia's blood like daily for the last few days, but Sophia has not agreed to be a vampire yet. And so Ash says, "Hey, let's go meet your friend Zachary." And Sophia's like, "Oh, sweet, Zachary's here. Let's go see Zachary." And she walks into this room as Zachary is feeding on this woman. It turns out and that terrifies Sophia because she doesn't want to be a vampire. She doesn't like vampires. It turns out this was a trick the whole time. Uh, Ash kind of just wanted to humiliate Zachary by exposing Sophia to him when he's in full vampire mode.
The fangs didn't
So
give it away
Zachary,
early on.
yeah, in case she wasn't clear that he was a vampire before, she knows now. And so Zachary is locked in his room, and he's in a room that locks from the outside, so it's kind of like a prison cell with a big bed in it. And he tries to like shadow teleport out, but he's like, "Oh, there's no like gaps anywhere." He can't do a shadow teleport unless there's a gap in the
No,
doorway or the window or
yes, so I
something.
actually like this little piece of lore because he specifically says he cannot. You must have light to make a shadow, and there was no light coming out from there, so he couldn't transport. It's almost like Ted Nicolaou saying that the vampires, when they teleport, they must have some sort of light to be able to get them from point A to point B. So if there was light coming in through the gap at the bottom of the door, he could teleport under the door because the light connects one side to the other side. Now, it doesn't explain why in the middle of the night they can just teleport outside. Maybe it's the moonlight. I don't know. But I actually kind of like that he was trapped there, and they at least gave me an explanation of why he could not just teleport out of there. Because I would have been like, dude, just teleport. All these vampires can teleport. But at
Yeah.
least we got a reason, which I'm okay with.
Oh, look, titties in the background.
Oh yeah, multiple sets. I will.
Anyway, so like,
This movie goes hard. Like we made the joke in the previous Subspecies movies that every single time like a vampire would go to bite a girl, he'd have to like drop her blouse first, right? But it only happened like maybe once each movie. This movie happens repeatedly with multiple, I guess,
yeah,
vampire girls or
if
whatever.
I if I knew nothing about vampire lore, I would assume that if a woman walked around doing this, she would be safe from vampires. It's
Yeah, you must show your breasts in order to feed on them. I guess they must show the
clearly
breasts.
that's part of the lore. Anyways, Zachary's been humiliated and trapped. There's all sorts of like vampire ashes people's like subplots going on. Like there's a vampire named Cassandra, I think, who is mega horny for Ash, but Ash now is into Sophia. Iris is upset that Ash keeps killing people in the casino and like doing it deliberately. Like she says, like, look, uh, if you want to kill people, you need to like sneak them in from like the underground labyrinth that
Yeah,
happens to be under this casino. Like,
be
don't
discreet,
bring people.
Ash. Don't come
Yeah,
through the front door.
don't bring people in the front door and then kill them, because then the police are going to come and say, "Hey, this is the last place this missing person was spotted. What's going on?"
Can't
And
fault
Ash
our
is like,
logic.
yeah, and Ash is like, Iris, like, I'm the master here. You're gonna do what I want you to do. And Iris is like, you are not my master. You are my boss. There's a difference. Like, I am not subservient
I
to
like
you. Eventually,
Cassandra's
like,
character or
yeah,
Iris's character.
Iris, yeah.
I like Iris just sort of standing up to him. And again, which is a common theme with all these subspecies movies, someone stands up to the vampire and the vampire backs down and does nothing about anything.
Well, no, like the first time Ash lets her get away with it, but the second time he force chokes her
Well, that's true.
and like to pull rank. So Ash does more than Radu does. Radon't.
Rado.
So Ash is, kind of like antagonizing his human friend that runs the casino. Um, Ash eventually kills Anton because Anton is, Ash told Anton, "Give me half of your kids' money," because that was supposed to be mine. And Anton says, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." But it turns out he was making plans to escape. So Ash kills Anton and Anton's lawyer that was there for some reason. Cassandra, it continues to be horny for Ash and is like, "Take me out to hunt with you." And eventually he does, but it's very clear that Cassandra is being replaced by Sophia. Iris and Cassandra have a standoff because uh, Iris finds vampires disgusting, despite them being her employer. At the same time, Cassandra thinks that Iris is one, food, and two, jealous of what Ash has and whatnot.
There's a lot
There's a
going on in
whole bu-
this.
there's a lot of just character subplots going on in the background of this movie.
It feels like a
But
soap
I mean,
opera. It kind of
it
feels like a
does.
soap
It
opera
it
at
does
times.
have that effect, or that feeling. But anyway, so there's all these subplots going on. Ultimately, all that matters is Zachary and Ash and Sophia. So Ash tells Iris, "Here's the key to Ash's room. When the sun comes up and he's basically comatose, just take him outside and just let the sun, just like set him outside and let the sun kill him." Iris instead goes and makes a deal with Zachary and says, like, take Sophia and get the hell out of here, because Iris tells Ash, kill Sophia because she is going to be the death of you. Exactly what
Mummy said
Crypt
to
Keeper
Radu.
Mummy
Yeah.
says to, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of repeat themes here, but
It's
Zachary,
poetic. It rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
yes, Zachary takes up Iris on the offer, goes to kill Ash, cuts into Ash's arm, like just hits him like right here with the Sword of
Like
Laertes,
he blocks
and
the
that,
sword with his arm. And I was like,
yeah,
how is the sword of Laertes that weak that it can't just lop his entire arm off?
maybe that's just how badass Ash is. I don't know, but it's not this movie doesn't operate under fighting game logic where arms in a fighting game you just do this, and bullets, blades, whatever, they can't hurt you. Ash tries a fighting game block and it does not work for him because the sword cuts into his arm. Zachary and Sophia flee. Ash sends Cassandra to pursue them, and this all results in basically Ash, Sophia, Zachary, and Cassandra all wind up in the piano room. Zachary kills Cassandra, gets the sword, slices Ash. Ash falls over like a railing into the sunlight and just turns into dust,
Did we talk
and
about
then
Zachary also kills Dimitri, Dr. Blood, by twisting his head around?
yeah. He does the this also happened in another one of the subspecies movies. Like this complete the vampire will grab someone's head and do like completely turn it around like Exorcist style, like a full 360. That happened in one of the other movies. Ash does it to Dr. Blood here.
Because he's like, I
So
don't have my
prior to
sword.
the
I got to
final
do the
fight.
next best thing.
And apparently turning their head around 360 degrees is the next best thing to cutting it off. I guess internally it would have the same impact. I don't know. Zachary kills Cassandra. Zachary cuts Ash with the Sword of Laertes. Ash falls in the sunlight and vaporizes. And then Zachary and Sophia find a place to hide from the sunlight. And the movie just ends. Like, it has a very abrupt ending.
Yeah. Almost like there was going to be another one or something. Maybe there had been
Yeah.
plans for a sequel that never came to fruition.
Yeah. So, all right. So, where when in the subspecies timeline is this movie supposed to take place? Because Ash dies in this, but is there in part four. So you'd assume it takes place after part four because Ash has to survive part four to die here. But then Dr. Blood gets his head completely cut, like turned around, and then also dies in part four. And
Yeah.
Zachary has the Sword of Laertes, and then Ash takes it from him, and then Zachary gets it back. But Radu also takes the sword from Ash in part four. So does the entirety of Subspecies 4 take place in the 20 minutes that Ash had the Sword of Laertes? I don't fucking know.
I wrote vampire journals with the idea that these vampires all being within the same family, it is perfectly logical that Radu could decide to come down from Transylvania to reclaim the underground fortress that has been taken over by Ash. And at the same time, the vampires from Subspecies could end up in Bucharest again on their way to their escape. I would hope very much that we could somehow bring the two stories together and create one gigantic vampire chaos.
I read that this takes place 100 years before part 4.
100 years before part
So
4.
there's a
Okay,
whole
so the 1800s? Because the Subspecies movies I assume take place in the 1980s when they were filmed, or maybe the 90s when they came out.
I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm just saying I read that it takes place 100 years beforehand. And yeah, because I'm trying to think. Yeah, it can't take place 100 years before because there's modern stuff everywhere. So it would have to take place. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Ted Nicolau, respect your canon, and shit like this won't happen.
I don't know when it takes place. It's out of time. I don't know.
Yeah, the Subspecies multiverse. This takes place on Earth 2.
And
I don't
Radu is
know.
only mentioned one time in this, and that was
Yeah.
just Ash saying, "Oh, my master Radu of Transylvania."
It was renovated in the 18th century by my predecessor and master, Radu of Transylvania.
But then in part 4, Radu comes back. He's like, "I'm going to retake my Bucharest holdings." So it's almost like at some point Radu had been hanging out in Bucharest, and I always got the feeling that he handed over Bucharest to Ash, so Ash could take care of his stuff while he was hanging out in Transylvania. But then part 4 makes it sound like Radu was hanging out in Bucharest for quite a bit of time. I don't know.
And then part 5, the prequel, shows that the Bucharest place actually belonged to Helena.
Yeah.
And Ash and his sister were there for a while, and then Radu shows up there again. At some point, Radu's got to give it to Ash and then lose it and then give it back to him.
I don't know. It would be
I don't fucking know.
really interesting to just have a conversation with Mr. Nicolau and say, were you just making random shit up? Like, oh, I need this sort of Laertes in this movie, and it doesn't really matter that it doesn't, the logic or the storyline of how it transferred ownership really matters. I just want to have it there as a connective piece of tissue to show these things are all kind of in the same universe, or was it literally like he has a plan, like this is all laid out somewhere in his mind, and it just didn't come out well when he made the movies? Because if there is an actual sort of, I guess, canon to this story, I don't exactly know what it is. Like, it's all of these movies are very confusing, not only on the rules of what happens with the vampires, but the storylines and where everything takes place, and items that mysteriously appear in one place and then appear in others. I this franchise leaves me more confused than satisfied story
I
wise.
would say, like send Mr. Nicolau a message saying, "Hey, please explain." But we've spent like 6 episodes now shitting all over his work, or at least I have. I don't know if he would really want to interact with us. But yeah, I can't make any sense of what's going on in these movies. It just seems to be like they were writing it as they went along without any actual plan in place. Um, yeah, rough franchise. What did you think of this movie?
Uh, I'll start with the stuff I did like. I thought that this looked really nice. It all the locations that they were at looked really really cool. You could tell that, like, in part 4 it seemed, I mean, it looked real bad. Subspecies 4 was like, you were talking, laughing about the orange operating room, and just the locations that they were at just seemed really cheap. This one doesn't seem cheap like part 4 did just a year later, and I think this was also Kushner Lock as well, so maybe at some point still had a little bit of leftover Paramount money that they were able to plug into this film. So I think the locations look really cool. I think Ash is a vampire. I think the guy who played him played it pretty well in terms of like a sort of like a threatening gothic vampire. I thought that guy did a good job. Everything else, though, I just don't care about this stuff. It felt very like Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire ish sort of thing, which is not what I'm into. I just want like vampires going around doing, evil shit. I don't need more romance. It's like I just saw 4 Subspecies movies about romancing, Denise Duff, which far superior to to anybody that was in this movie. And I'm like, I just don't care about this whole thing. I would have liked this movie to dive more into the relationship between Ash and Radu. I think you could have done a spin-off where Radu's not the main character, but maybe start this one off with Radu, like in a prologue or something. It's Radu and it's Ash, and somehow something happens that Ash is able to get away from Radu and set up this whole Bucharest brothel sort of thing and become like a success story. And then maybe he's got to deal with, I don't know, maybe Radu sends minions after him or something to try to take him down, like almost like a gothic horror gangster type film. I think that would have been kind of cool. I don't mind the idea that he's into music and stuff like that, but I just felt like this was too romance heavy for my tastes, and I wasn't a big fan of this one. Better than part 4, though. I think I liked it better than part 4. How about you?
I liked this one, question mark.
Wow.
I, I think this just shows like how little I ended up giving a shit about the character of Radu. 'Cause I was much more into this
Okay.
than any of them. Again, I found 5 not good but interesting. I was expecting this to be hot garbage, and to be fair, it kind of is. I was more interested in all of the characters in this movie than any of the characters that were in Subspecies 1 to 4.
Okay.
Uh, I mean, I kind of like the story of Ash, who's this very like he just seems bored, and I think that's kind of like an interesting idea of for a character that is going to just live forever, essentially. Like he's got all of these distractions, a casino, a brothel. He can go eat people whenever he wants, and he just looks fucking dead inside, which he's a vampire, which is fair. But it's like he's looking for something to pique his interest, and so little does that now that he's 1,000 years old or whatever. Um,
It's got that
I
music.
like the Ash character in
She can play
this.
that piano, and he wants to hear that
Yeah,
forever.
Zachary was nothing special, but I think I mentioned in when we did Subspecies 5, like I'd have been interested to see like a movie where Radu the vampire is out killing other vampires before he has his heel turn, and we kind of got that here, a vampire hunting vampire story. Like again, I it's not good, but I think this is a good bad movie as opposed to just bad bad, which I think the
Okay.
rest of Subspecies is. So yeah, I I think Subspecies is 1 in 5, with the spinoff being the one.
Okay.
It doesn't make a lick of
Okay.
fucking sense when you try to piece it into the timeline of the rest of the movies, but as a standalone, I was into it.
Okay, that's
Good
fair.
bad.
That's good. I mean,
Good
at
bad.
least it ended. This franchise ended on a high for you. Now, you getting back around to your question as to would you have preferred to have seen this before part four, or would you have preferred to wait till after, to the very end? In your opinion, would you have wanted to see this right after we watched Subspecies 3?
Uh
Or would it have made you more pissed off because then you see
no, see,
4 and then none of it makes any sense whatsoever?
yeah. At the time of us going through this, I felt like we should have watched them in order. Um I definitely enjoyed this more as a standalone, so I think watching it at the end helped that. I would have loved to have seen my reaction, and I'm sure I just would have been fucking incredulous at the massive plot holes that this movie creates in regards to part four. So I'm sad that I didn't get to have that reaction, but happy that I got to enjoy one of these movies. This franchise fucking sucks. There is very little redeeming about it. I don't think that nostalgia would have saved these for me if I had watched them in the past. 'Cause I look at these and there's very little redeeming about them. I also think that Vampire Journals is so far removed from the rest of Subspecies that maybe I'm wrong here and there wouldn't have been much of an impact at all, because this is not a Subspecies movie.
Yeah.
You could have taken the Ash character and called him Bob, completely separate it from the Subspecies universe, and nothing changes. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe this is far enough removed that I wouldn't have the negative thoughts that I think I would have otherwise.
Yeah, because the only real
I don't know.
connection that at least at the time when this came out in 1997, the only connection to the Subspecies movies at that time was he mentions Radu was his master, and that's it. It's like one line, really, really quick, and there's literally nothing else. It wasn't until part four when he tried to start connecting these specific characters and the locations into the main overall subspecies universe, so to speak, that then it becomes like, well, what? None of this really makes any sense now. I literally just watched Ash turn into dust in the sunlight. How the hell is he suddenly back in Subspecies 4? Like you said, it would have to take place after Subspecies 4, which doesn't make sense with other plot elements that take place in this movie. So, I think those kind of things, you just kind of have to roll with it and be like, okay, it makes no sense. I don't really care. I'm sure there's a lot of I know there's a lot of diehard Subspecies fans out there. A lot of Full Moon fans love these Subspecies movies. Now, again, I don't know if they've watched them recently, back to back to back, like we have, and sort of seen the flaws in the screenwriting and the story. But how we'll sort of wrap up this episode with let's give our ratings, or our rankings. Sorry, our rankings of the overall Subspecies franchise. So, how would you rank all six films? I guess would include Vampire Journals in there.
I'd say Vampire Journals is number one. Uh, Part five, the prequel, is number two. Uh, Subspecies 4 is dead last, and then I think 1, 2, and 3 are all pretty interchangeable. I might rank them in like descending order. So I might go like 3, 2, 1 for the bottom four.
Okay.
I definitely think Vampire Journals and Part 5 are uh, easily, like, not even questionable, the two superior movies of the
Well, I don't
franchise.
know about that. My ranking would be two. Number two would be would be in first place for me. I love number two. Then I go the first Subspecies. I go 2, 1. Gosh, then it gets real difficult for me because I didn't really like any of these. I guess I would go Vampire Journals 3 just because I do like how it looks. There was more positive elements to this, even though I'm not into the romance angle at this point. Um, there's more positive elements in that. So I'd put that number 3. Then I'd probably have to put 3 as number 4. And then, gosh, is Bloodstorm the
We'll
worst?
we'll we'll do a shitty tier maker episode
Yeah,
at some
yeah.
point.
I'll put Bloodstorm at 5, and then I would put the prologue last. I really didn't like I didn't like part 5 really at all. I don't think there was nothing in there. I felt it was such a disappointment. It didn't connect really anything together. It was such a mess of a movie. I mean, you love the part 5 way more than I do. We
This
have the
is
complete opposite, basically.
this is like Ghostbusters, because we have this thing where like I and friend of the show Ronan are very big Ghostbusters fans, and we don't like any of the later stuff. And Matt hates Ghostbusters and is like, yeah, Afterlife is the best Ghostbusters
Yeah.
movie. It's just
That's the only Ghostbusters movie I actually liked was Afterlife. I'm actually excited to see the new one that's coming out too. So I'll probably go watch the sequel to Afterlife because I liked Afterlife so much. It just all goes to show it's like, you know, movies hit people in different ways. And it's like we can both look at the exact same piece of art and you could have one reaction to it and then I could have a completely different reaction to it, and it's totally fine. I know there's probably going to be full moon people who watch this, and if they've made it this far, like all they're doing is shitting on these full moon movies. We're actually fans of full moon. We like full moon movies. We still watch full moon movies to this day.
I'm so worried that I'm going to figure out that I don't actually like Full Moon. I just like Killer Puppets.
Well, that's going to be the big thing because going forward, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go in chronological order. And we're going to watch every Puppet Master movie, starting with Retro Puppet Master, which I believe takes place in like 1902. So we're just going to work our way all the way through the Puppet Master franchise in chronological date order. So not the date that they were released, but when the films actually take place. I've never done that before. I think it's going to be an interesting experiment. But like you, I've always, to my core, loved the Puppet Master franchise. Loved it. I've seen Subspecies, which is a franchise I thought I loved, and I realized I really don't love it at all. I like a couple movies in it, but I really don't like the rest, all things considered. And I'm just worried that now I'm going to see these Puppet Master movies, and I'm going to realize, yeah, I don't really know what Full Moon brought to the table, and it could be totally possible that Full Moon their target audience would be like young teens, and that's fine. I think that you can have horror films that are designed for different audiences, right? So you can have horror that's designed for like little kids, like gateway horror type stuff. Then you can have stuff that's designed for maybe your 11 to 14 year range, where you're not watching things like a Serbian film yet. You're just kind of like, oh, here's a cool little stop motion puppet running around with a knife for a hand chasing a topless girl around. That's cool. And then but as you get older you realize you've seen so many better movies and things that actually have weight to them and interesting stories and characters that when you revisit them later on in your 40s and you're like, I think this was for 14-year-old Matthew, not 42-year-old Matthew, for example. But we'll see. I don't remember Retro Puppet Master being very good, so I feel like we're gonna start weak. We're gonna start off being like, yeah, I don't know about this, but I'm hoping by the time we get to like the original and 2 and 3 and all that, we're gonna be like,
They've made so many prequels now
I
that
know,
part 1, 2, and 3 are like in the last half of the franchise
it's
chronologically.
crazy.
Now, thankfully, I don't know that they're good, but we definitely had some fun with the prequels like Axis
Yeah,
Termination and Axis Rising and whatnot. Um, it's weird how many prequels they put out. Again, my opinion on prequels is make a prequel when you run out of ideas. So we'll see if that bears
Yeah,
fruit here.
pretty much the entire franchise is a prequel.
It's more prequel than not prequel now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Subspecies franchise, we've made it all the way through it. We are not hot on the franchise as a whole. I think I like it a little bit better than Steve overall, at least the first 2 movies. But there you have it. Leave a comment down below if you think that we're crazy and we're missing something about these Subspecies movies that we...
Wrap it up, Matt. There's titties coming. Wrap it up.
Oh, hold on. I'll cover this. So yeah, next time, ladies and gentlemen, we talk retro Puppet Master, and we begin our 15 film Puppet Master journey. That should be a lot of fun. What are we doing with our lives? See ya next week.